Hello and welcome to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back talking about Star Wars this time. How are you doing, Matt?
Pretty damn good, sir.
Excellent. Yeah, so I think this is I don't know whether it's the new format or what at the moment. I guess for now we're going to talk some old movies. Yeah, talk about some old movies as we continue through the lockdown, because there's not much coming out. I know you've said you've seen a film, I've seen a film, but we can save that for next week. Or if we run out of things to talk about Star Wars, which seems highly unlikely, then we can talk about it today. So what film are we covering today?
Well, considering it's the 40th anniversary, we thought we'd go with start with Empire Strikes Back.
How old does that make you feel?
Very.
40 years this year.
Yeah. I was 5 when it came out.
Yeah, did you see it in the cinema? Were you taken to the cinema to see it?
No,
you
I
did.
didn't.
Okay, because I was guessing five's kind of borderline, isn't it, as to whether you know.
I did watch Jedi in the cinema.
Oh, okay. So, which is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Empire.
It is Empire. Okay, I wondered if it would be
Empire.
Jedi, because Jedi was the one you kind of saw in the cinema and had that.
No, because my dad had a video of the first two.
Oh wow! Okay.
So I had seen them, and I think by that point, I think Star Wars had already been on TV and stuff, and I think
I would have thought so. Yeah.
I presume Empire had been as well.
Quite possibly.
So sure, but I definitely seen Empire before then on video. So
yeah, I'd seen them on video. I think I saw them on TV first.
Yeah.
I seem to remember. I always have this vivid memory of this. This one time I was on holiday and we were in a caravan.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you where the holiday is, but I have distinct memory of I believe Empire being on one channel, and on the other channel I think it was Star Trek 3.
Oh wow.
It was like the one channel had obviously done we're showing all the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And I think it was like ITV or someone had been like, we're going to show all the Star Wars movies. And the BBC or Channel 4 were like, fuck you, we're going to show all the Star Trek movies. And so like basically it was just like switching between the two constantly. It was it was Star Trek 5. It was Star Trek 5.
Okay.
It was 5, and I know it was 5 because I distinctly remember seeing Scotty knock himself out.
Right.
Which is 5, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I know this shit like the back of my hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember seeing that. So so it was 5. So there's no real competition there between Star Trek 5 and although I've grown to like Star Trek 5 over the years, It's got its moments. It's not a good movie, but it's got its moments.
The way you get from them, I think, the more you sort of tolerate them, I think.
Absolutely.
There are bits in that movie I like a lot, and
I like the opening camping scenes and stuff.
Those are great.
Kind of the intimate moments of that film are quite good, but the overall film is not good. I think it's the only Star Trek film of the original Star Trek movies that gives me pause for I'm not sure if I want to watch that, because even the motion picture now, I love the motion picture now.
Yeah,
I never used to. I think as a kid I just thought it was boring, but now I love it. It kind of is, but it's really beautiful. It's gorgeous to look at.
Oh yeah.
And
I think the thing is when you're a kid, you don't really. It's like the first time you watch 2001.
Which obviously the motion picture was kind of a rip-off of anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's that sort of style. You kind of not exactly learn to love it, but you sort of you appreciate it more. And I think the motion picture is definitely one of those ones that you appreciate later.
Definitely. But yeah, it was one of those horrible times when I had to choose between Star Wars and Star Trek, two of my favorite things.
Yeah.
That happened to be on TV at the same time.
I think at least that would have been slightly easier because Empire is way better than Star Trek 5. So
it made it a lot easier, but every time there was an ad break, it was switched to the other channel. Yeah. So I could watch that I could watch Star Trek 5 during the ad break and then switch back when the ad break was over.
I mean, the good thing about Star Trek 5 is you probably wouldn't have missed a lot.
No, that's the thing. Not a lot happens, does it? So, Empire is definitely the more action-packed of the two, for sure. Yeah. It's not a fair comparison.
And even that's not massively action-packed.
No, not really. No, that's true. But you have the opening epic moment. There's big action set pieces and epic moments in The Empire Strikes Back. I don't think there really is at all with Star Trek V. I mean, I guess you got the shuttle bay bit, and then you've got the bit on the planet, and that's probably about it.
Yeah, I guess the end bit with the
odd
bird of prey and stuff is
yeah.
But it's not. I think they did plan. I know they planned a lot more on that, didn't they? Because they had like rock monsters.
They had rock monsters, which looked amazing.
They never bothered with because I think they couldn't get it quite to look quite right. I don't think.
No, I think the thing is, it never would have saved the movie, but it would have been fun.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a really cool moment, but it certainly wouldn't have saved the movie. So in any case, that was a difficult day to make my mind up. But yes, so The Empire Strikes Back, 1980.
Yeah, well, I had the problem that I was the only one in my year that had seen Empire, so nobody at school believed me that it existed.
Well, this is the thing, because I guess back then, I mean, I wasn't even born then, but I mean, certainly even when I was a kid, it was like word of mouth. It wasn't, you didn't have the internet to know. Like now, we know what films are coming out forever.
Exactly.
In the
I mean,
future.
well, you don't
even the slight hint of a film is like, oh, we know that's coming out.
It's all newspaper listings, isn't it? So or if you had it, CFAX, or
CFAX.
The old CFAX.
I did love CFAX.
I love CFAX. CFAX is brilliant.
There's a website that's still got CFAX on it.
I know.
Just go to it and just use it for CFAX every day. It's great. So George Lucas decided, I'm not sure why he decided, but didn't decide to direct this one.
Basically because he was knackered.
Fair.
It nearly killed him, I think.
Well, I think the thing is, ironically, I think he probably would have had an easier time with Empire. Because obviously with A New Hope, no one believed in the project either. That was probably half the stress.
He was also trying to get the ranch sorted. He was trying to get that off, Industrial Light and Magic. He was trying to get that up and running at that point as well. So he was doing like multiple things, and he basically, after Star Wars, I think he had like chest pains.
Oh, right. Okay.
And he went to the hospital and checked himself into a hospital. They basically diagnosed him with exhaustion and stress, and said that you need to take. So I think he probably thought, maybe I shouldn't direct all of this. And Krishna was one of his teachers at college.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he asked him, and originally he said, no, I don't want to. I don't want to do a sequel, and I think it's too effects heavy. And his agent said, "Are you mad?
Are you insane?
You've just turned down like doing the second one of the most, the most profitable movie ever at that point."
I mean, after New Hope, Star Wars was the biggest thing on the planet. I mean, you'd be kind of insane not to do that, to be honest. But it's kind of interesting that he did actually say no originally. I guess did he think he was above it, or did he?
Well, no, he
just wasn't interested in that kind of movie.
Most of the movies he directed before were all quite low key character movies.
Yeah, and I think that really benefits this movie.
Absolutely.
It's clear from the direction of this movie and the writing, which obviously we'll get to the writers, but it is a director who understands character and understands building character and dialogue between characters.
And that's exactly what he wanted. He wanted to basically, to make it more of a character piece, and and bring out those characters.
It really does show, because there aren't too many character pieces in A New Hope. I mean, there is an arc. Certainly there's a story arc. But you don't really get much of a sense of the relationships. Like in A New Hope, obviously, Han and Luke are both kind of vying for Leia's interest and all that kind of stuff. But that's nowhere near as much as you get in Empire. In Empire, obviously, and I guess it benefits from being the second film. They've established all the characters and they can move forward with it. But we get a lot of lovely moments with Han and Leia, and it's one of my favorite things about this movie is actually the relationship between Han and Leia throughout.
Absolutely, it's brilliant.
This kind of Princess Leia putting on this kind of facade of hating him and disliking him and finding him disgusting, when in reality she clearly does like him. And the same with Han Solo. Han Solo's trying to play the cocky, arrogant guy. He's like, "Oh, I'm not interested. I'm leaving," and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, playing it cool and that sort of thing.
Playing it cool. Yes, I think it does show.
The other thing about it being a sequel is at that point, really, most sequels. I mean, there were very few sequels then anyway. And certainly profitable ones. Most sequels back then were, really just either rehashes of the first part or just shameless cash grabs.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
You certainly don't get sort of many.
Ironically, that's where Star Wars ends up going. But,
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it's what were your first impressions seeing Empire? Because it's quite a different opening. It's quite. It almost feels like it's immediately different.
I think that's one of its great strengths is that you immediately start on, a snow planet. You're right there with these characters, and you're on not out in space. There's no sort of big space battle at the beginning this time. It's almost completely the opposite of what you had before. Which apparently was one of the things he wanted to do. He's like, depending on who you listen to, is Lucas basically said, doing effects like in space with the blackness of space is easy. Let's do it like in the snow.
Okay. I mean, it certainly proved challenging for them, but I think they pulled it off rather well considering the budget and the technical limitations of the time. Some great miniature work.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember seeing the walkers for the first time. And you think that is like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Just massive.
I must admit, for me, the walkers are even more iconic than Death Stars. And Star Destroyers. They just are, to me, in my mind, when I think Star Wars, AT-ATs are like one of the first things my mind goes to.
Yep.
But yeah, you're right. It's very different. It's a very different opening to A New Hope, and I think it definitely benefits from no, we're going to do something completely different. It's on the planet. It's on a nice planet.
Yeah, the fact that
we're not in the desert.
Ground combat as opposed to up in space is really really cool.
And the opposite of a desert. It's literally the opposite of the other movie. Obviously, all of our characters are now established. Mark Hamill had a car crash before this movie began production. Ended up with some scarring to his face, which they wrote into the movie.
Well, apparently that's not true. Apparently again, it's another of those.
Who do you believe?
Some people say that it was rewritten to make it, but apparently his scarring had pretty much healed by the time he'd come, because I think the accident was 2 years before they started filming. So
I wonder, I wonder whether, because I'm sure I'd read an interview once with some of the cast that were saying that's why they did it, and I wonder whether they just did it in case he wouldn't be healed in time, and luckily he was. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I really love that scene, and I'm really glad we have it.
I am. And this is actually one of the first cases where I really appreciate the re-releases, because
they added that bit, didn't they?
The Wampa in is so much better than the original.
I haven't actually watched the special editions for a long time to tell you, but from memory, yes, I do remember it being, because they added extra bits, didn't they, with the Wampa, which I think does serve that scene better. Unfortunately, I could have watched the special editions. Actually, I watched the original version this morning rather than the special editions.
Sadly, I don't have the original versions on
DVD.
I only have it on VHS. So
yeah. there is a DVD release. I think I've shown you it before. There is a DVD release that has the original cuts on them. Most people seem to think it doesn't exist, but it does exist. Yeah, that scene is definitely better in the special edition. In fact, that's one of the rare moments of those special editions, I would say.
Empire is the one that's tampered with the least, I think.
It is, and I think where they do it from memory are places I really liked it generally.
Yeah, it's
because
things
I know
like Windows added to Cloud City and stuff like that, which is really good. I think
it benefits
Star
Cloud
Wars.
City
I think
massively.
has it on when they're in Tatooine. There's too much going on, I think, in that one.
Oh yeah, I don't need extra CGI monsters running around and all that sort.
The same with the canteen. They added like some of the different monsters and changed some of the way they looked. It's like, oh,
they got rid of the wolf dude, didn't they?
They did. They got rid of the wolf guy.
That's a crime. I love the wolf. I like all those guys in the cantina. I know they're a bit like joke shop, fancy dress masks, but I love them.
Yeah, I think there was a very disappointing when the actors went in and saw that though.
I'm sure it was. They probably. Can you imagine an actor of the caliber of Alec Guinness walking in there and just being like, "What have I done?
Why have I signed on to this crap?"
Well, you can see why he wasn't a big fan to begin with, or didn't think much of it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, the money helped on that one, didn't it?
Oh, I think he came to love it. Yeah. For sure. For reasons. So yeah, we catch up with the Rebel Alliance. They're now on the planet Hoth, hiding from the Empire. Luke gets attacked and by the Wampa and ends up having a vision of Obi-Wan telling him to go find Yoda.
Well, they weren't sure whether Guinness would come back for for the next two. Well, I guess for this one first. But he agreed to it. But basically, he did 1 day's work.
I'm sure he did, yeah.
And he got a percentage for that as well. So
it does. It does tie the narrative together nicely, though. To be fair.
Well, I think in the original script, I think the Force Ghost was going to be Anakin.
Was it? That's interesting.
It was going to be Anakin, and like stuff with Leia and stuff was originally it wasn't going to be Leia as the Jedi. It was going to be I think they were called, is it Nanny? Something beginning with N, Skywalker, and she was going to have been trained somewhere else.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but that was a really early sort of draft of the script that they sort of,
that's interesting.
Got rid of and changed. So it just goes to show that the whole storyline was never really completely set down.
Well, no, and I mean, obviously, famously, Anakin wasn't Darth Vader.
No.
That was all separate. A lot of happy accidents or I guess unbeknownst to them, amazing decisions that they made that really makes this film.
Yeah.
Where does this rank for you in terms of Star Wars? This is your number one, right?
Yeah, it's my number one. Yeah.
It's mine too.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much always been my number one.
It has for me, for sure.
I mean, we'll get to the ending, so we'll talk about that later. But it's I think it's pretty iconic for that, really. I think
it is. One thing I noticed, it was one thing I noticed that I've never noticed before when I've watched Empire Strikes Back my entire life, which is a weird one, and I don't know why they did it. It's a weird choice. It's so minor, but in The Empire Strikes Back, when they're on Hoth, and Luke and Han get locked out of the base because it's going to be too cold, they have to close the shields. It's R2 that gives the odds, not C-3PO. And then C-3PO comments on it, and I'm like, that's weird because you're the odds guy.
Yeah.
It's just really strange because in the whole rest of the trilogy and the whole rest of the saga, it's always C-3PO that gives the odds, except that one time. And he's like, well, R2 has been known to be wrong from time to time. It's like, well, why don't you give the odds then? Because you've always given the odds. Although, actually, I suppose historically, he's always been wrong with the odds. So, or at least they always beat the odds. So.
I think that's it. It's they always take the option for the odds. But I think maybe this. I've always thought maybe that in this case it was R2 because R2 loves his master. you know, it's more of an intimate sort of odds thing, you know.
And I guess
worry.
It could have been part of that argument that they had between C-3PO and R2-D2 when R2's stood out trying to scan, and C-3PO's like, "Come on, come in, like they'll be fine." Yeah. Maybe that's when they had that argument. I'm not sure, but I just find it interesting. I was like, "Oh, that's really weird. I'd never noticed that before." But R2 said there.
One of the things I never noticed until I sort of read it recently was all of the rebels have American accents. And all of the Empire have British accents.
Well, you can't beat the British accent for villain.
No, well, apparently it's to do. It's because they wanted sort of references to the War of Independence.
Oh, okay.
And apparently the funny thing is that most of the actors on the rebel side were all English, so they had to redub their voices with Americans.
That's interesting. I mean, they did do that a little bit with Star Wars: A New Hope as well, didn't they? Because I know Porkins, that's not Porkins' original voice. No. I think he's been dubbed like so many times now, because he was dubbed again in Batman as well, wasn't he?
Of course, yeah. He was. Was he Bullock? Wasn't he?
Yeah, whatever his name is. Was he Bullock? Yeah. I mean, whoever he is. I think he was like a Bullock stand-in.
No, that's right. He wasn't actually Bullock. He was basically Bullock.
Basically Bullock, yeah. But yeah, he seems to have always had his voice overdubbed for some reason. But
a really high voice or something. I don't know.
Maybe. That's interesting though, because it's not like egregious enough that I'd ever noticed until you said that. No. So it's kind of fine. Like it's not like it was a really obvious thing. But I do think that traditional British accent suits the Empire quite nicely, actually.
Especially when you've got, like, in the first one, you've got, like, Peter Cushing.
Yeah. You basically got the cast of Hammer Horror. Just,
exactly. Well, also,
including A. Frankenstein,
Exactly. Price played the monster, like, twice, I think.
Yeah. So you got Frankenstein and his monster in A New Hope, which is a lovely thought.
Was he a mummy as well? Was he one of the mummies?
I think it was Christopher Lee, unless he did one of the later ones.
I think he might have done one of the later ones. He certainly wasn't the first one, but yeah.
No. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'd never noticed that before. That's quite a nice touch, and certainly, like I said, it's not egregious enough that I'd noticed until you said it. So, no. But it works well. It's nice that they kind of separate them, and also it's not that kind of posh English accent that they put on is not the it's not the pilots, and it's not noticeable. In fact, the stormtroopers always sounded kind of American to me.
Yeah, I guess
it's
because they've got the voice modulator that they always sound a bit.
Yeah, they made themselves sound American.
Yeah,
but it's the top brass, which I quite like. It's they're like stuck up upper class top brass of the Empire. I think works quite well. I always loved that contrast between the Empire and the Rebel Alliance, because traditionally by that point you would assume the clean ships and the clean people would be the protagonists, and the antagonists would be the dirty, messy pirates. Whereas obviously Star Wars flips that on its head, and we're actually on the Rebel Alliance's side, fighting the Empire. But yeah, so Luke heads off to Dagobah. Oh no, sorry. Well, first of all, he gets his head stuck inside of a what is it called? Tauntaun. That's it. Yeah.
I actually heard a joke the other day that I've never heard before.
Go on.
And it's what temperature is a tauntaun? Lukewarm.
Oh, that was so goddamn obvious. I feel sick.
I'm sure that's a really old joke, but I've never heard it before.
I've never heard it before, and I'm ashamed that I didn't guess that.
I thought it was brilliant. It's terrible, but I love it.
Yeah, it's quite a brutal scene, that. I always thought that as a kid, and I still think it now. Like, rewatching it now, it's like, wow.
I know somebody that was eating rice pudding when they were watching that.
And I can't ever watch rice pudding again.
Yeah, it put them off rice pudding for years.
Amazing.
I think the only time you see Han use a lightsaber as well, isn't it?
To my knowledge, certainly. Yeah.
Not talking, not sort of going for the books and things, but
no. But I love the way I love the way that Harrison Ford carries out that scene, because when he turns the lightsaber on, he holds it like someone who doesn't know what the hell they're doing with the lightsaber. Like he's very careful with it, and he looks kind of like, oh, this is really dangerous. Because I think they are inherently dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely love that scene. It's quite a brutal scene.
The funny thing about that is they actually took that from the Revenant.
Yes.
So they took that from the real story. The
oh,
guy.
Interesting.
Yeah, when the guy was torn up by the bear, he cut open a horse and spent the night in a horse during a storm, and so they took it from that.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I don't think the movie The Revenant has much to do with the actual original story, other than a guy was attacked by a bear. I think they added an awful lot to that movie.
They did, but I mean that's a great movie.
Oh, it's an amazing movie. It's an amazing movie. The scene, I still think one of the best effect scenes I've ever seen. When he gets attacked by the bear is just, oh my god, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yes, after surviving the night, obviously they get rescued by the Rebel Alliance just in time, because the Empire are on their way with their AT-AT walkers. And this is, like, for me, like I said, it's the most iconic scene in Star Wars for me. I think seeing those AT-ATs in the distance.
Yep.
Just amazing.
I mean, and there's it's a great reveal as well, because you first see them through the binoculars, and it's focused right on the face.
Yes.
And then they sort of pull back, and it's like, oh, those things are pretty big. And then he sort of looks at them, and
no, they're
whoa, those are massive.
Yeah.
And what they were great toys as well. I personally never had one. One of my friends did.
Never had one. Always wanted one.
I had a Scout Walker, but I never had an AT-AT.
I always really liked the Scout Walker.
I do.
I think the AT-ST is underappreciated.
Yeah.
Because everyone loves the AT-ATs, but I think the AT-ST is also good. I mean, it's a shame that they can just be destroyed by logs. But aside from that,
and rocks,
I mean, they are made of tinfoil, but apart from
absolutely.
That, right. And rocks, yeah, of course, they do get defeated by rocks.
Yeah. I do. I must admit, I've always had a soft spot for that bit with the wobbly legs. I think that's fantastic.
Yes, I love that, and I love it here as well when the legs get tied up. I think that's the benefit of having models, and doing it with real models and things. It just looks so much better. It's the kind of thing that if they'd done it today, they'd all do it completely with CG, and it just wouldn't look the same.
Well, I mean, this is one of the things that another one of the Lucas things is that they have so many patents for lenses and special effects and model work, and I mean,
I think that's where he made his fortune. A lot of that stuff. He was pioneering.
Absolutely, and the effects. I think all the model work was all done in California. While they were filming in mostly in England for a lot of the other interiors, as this was filmed in the opening was filmed in Norway, and all of the rebel troops were all Norwegian search and rescue.
Oh, that's nice. I always like it when films do that, when they get local army or local whoever, whoever's around, just to kind of like, well, who's going to play a soldier better than a soldier? Yeah, just get the army in, Yeah, it's nice. So we have the for me, the most epic scene in all of Star Wars.
And it's great on the, was it Super Star Wars, where you get to fly around the AT-ATs and stuff? That was always great as well.
That's Shadows of the Empire is where they started that, and then they did Empire Strikes Back on the Atari had the same thing. That was all you did, actually, was just take those things down. But yeah, I think it was Shadows of the Empire, and then they did Rogue Squadron as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, a Super Star Wars is fantastic, because the Super Star Wars games are, if you can get through them, they're like hard as balls, but great fun.
I do remember where there's an infinite life thing on one of them. It's just that. I mean, just after a drop, you can go into this cave and there's a life there, and you can keep doing it
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you end up getting just you end up stopping out of frustration more than anything else, I think.
Yeah.
But they were true arcade games, so it makes perfect sense. But yeah, I absolutely love this scene. I think it's my favorite scene in terms of battle scene in Star Wars. My absolute favorite, which is ironic because it's not in the stars.
Yeah, and it's another one of those ones where it just proves that the Empire has got so much better technology and firepower and manpower than the rebels have, because they don't win as such. No. They just get kind of overrun and they run away.
That's one of the things I actually wanted to touch on in this, which I think is a really incredible thing they do in this film. They throughout the film they show that the Empire is so big and they've got so much wealth that they just waste resources all the time. There's that wonderful scene when they're searching for Han and Leia in the asteroid field, and you literally see a Star Destroyer get knackered, and then it cuts to the holograms, and one of the holograms is just a guy dying. He just disappears off screen, and it's just like they just don't care.
Vader even says it's like so we can't go in there. It's an asteroid field. It's like asteroid fields do not concern me.
And they're like, how much consider when you think if you try and put obviously it's fantasy, sure, but if you put it in the context of like how much does like one fighter jet cost us? It's like $2.5 million a jet or something like that. Probably even more than that. Thinking about it,
a lot more. It's like 20 billion or something stupid.
Yeah. You just think like, wow, you're just wasting Star Destroyers. But I really love those scenes because it really does show the wealth and the lack of care that they have for their subordinates, and
lack of giving a shit about what they just replace them. It's fine.
Yeah, I think it really does drive home the idea that the Empire's resources are infinite.
Yeah,
and the Rebel Alliance just scraping together what they can.
You've got the the whole Vader kills two of his own people in this.
He does, yeah.
A general and a cap. I think, is he a captain? The other one? Yeah, Captain Needer. Yeah, Needer. It's like, how do you? It's like the opposite of promotion in the Klingon Empire. It's like Klingon Empire. You have to fight the person above you. In this, it's like you have to wait till Vader kills him before you can take his place.
Yeah, and he does get promoted, doesn't he, Nida? Yeah, he gets promoted first, then killed.
Fiat.
Fiat,
no,
yes.
It's Fiat. Fiat gets promoted after they kills. I can't remember the name. Well, it's Mr. Bronson from Grange Hill. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess there must be a rank within the Empire that you get to, and you're like, I can't get promoted any further because I will die. Yeah. Like, this is as far as I go.
Yeah, there's only so much responsibility you want around Vader.
Yeah, you want like middle management.
Yeah,
this is where you want to be.
Cushy away from Vader job.
Yeah, captain seems all right, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
much higher than that, and you're definitely risking a forced choke.
Yeah, Christ.
Read an interesting theory. Don't know. I mean, obviously, it's just a fan theory, so it doesn't mean anything. And in fact, actually, now that I think about it, I can already kind of ruin that idea, so it doesn't quite work. But anyway, I'll take the theory. So it doesn't work because of the opening of A New Hope. Aside from the opening of A New Hope, it does kind of work. Someone was saying that Anakin was always struggling with the light and dark within him. So you only ever see him killing Imperial officers, and he doesn't kill his son. He actually lets his son, he basically lets his son get away at the end of Empire. And so the theory was that Anakin was only ever trying to overthrow the Emperor, and was therefore only ever see him killing Imperial officers. But then I suddenly thought the opening of A New Hope does kind of knacker that idea. So
yeah.
Although I guess he was surrounded by. He didn't have much choice there. I guess he had to do what he had to do there. But I thought it was a nice theory then when I heard it anyway. So yes. So they defeat the AT-ATs with the help of Luke.
They defeat two of them.
Enough for them to get away.
Yeah.
Because they're shooting the ion cannons into the atmosphere to disable the Star Destroyers.
Yeah.
Han, Leia, Chewie, C-3PO and not R2-D2.
No, R2's with
escape on the
Luke
Falcon.
Yep.
And Luke escapes. Do you know, for ages when I was a kid, I always used to think, I was always like, where did Luke get the second lightsaber from? Because in my mind, and I don't know why, but as a kid, for the longest time, he throws that grenade into the AT-AT. I always thought that was his lightsaber because it kind of looks the same shape. And for ages, I was like, where does he get the other lightsaber from? He just threw it in there and it blew up.
Nondescript silver tube.
Yeah, it's just a nondescript silver tube. I thought it was his lightsaber. So Luke.
I must admit, I always thought that was a bit of a pants way of disabling that thing. It's like, oh, he just hits that, chucks a grenade in, and that's it. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been way cooler if he just literally chopped one of the legs off with a lightsaber. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, because that would have worked, wouldn't it?
Or weakened it at least, to where it snapped off. That'd be really cool. But yeah, I guess they were quite limited with what they could get away with and what they could manage. So
yeah, I mean, now I think now it's fine because you just sort of think, well, maybe it's the Force helped it a bit.
Yes. I mean, he's the son of Anakin, so he's tremendously powerful. And yeah, I think it's entirely possible that he's doing a lot of things on instinct, using the Force instinctually.
Yeah.
Which was always a big thing, wasn't it? That they should just let the Force do everything for them.
Yeah. And I always felt sorry for the guy in the back of his speeder, because
he gets crushed, doesn't he? He tries to help.
I mean, you presume because at the point where they've crashed, they've been hit and he's out.
Yeah.
But they don't specify whether he's dead or not.
I would assume he's probably.
Presume he's dead, but he might not be. And you think poor old Luke can't get him out. And he ends up getting splatted. You think poor bastard.
He does. Yeah.
I suppose at least he would have known nothing about it if he was just unconscious. But
true. Yeah. Hopefully he didn't wake up at the last second just to see that foot coming down. Because there is that shot from that angle, which is like, oh, maybe that's his perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah, so go on.
So you get them escaping into the asteroid field, because the hyperdrive doesn't bloody work.
Yes.
And apparently a lot of those the asteroids and things, a lot of them are potatoes.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's tremendous.
Apparently there was a shoe. Apparently is one of them as well, because. Apparently, Lucas kept telling them to redo it, and the rumor is that one of the guys got pissed off and threw his shoe in, so they kept it.
Right.
Apparently, it's since been taken out when they did the refurbs, as it were.
Well, but, I'm gonna have to rewatch that scene there
just to see if one of them's
on the originals. Yeah, just to see if it is there. I want to know. That's tremendous. So yeah, we go from one iconic monster with the Wampa to the other iconic monster of this movie, the big, massive wormy thing,
yeah.
Space worm,
yeah, the great asteroid space worm, which is such a great. Again, it's like a great scene that you just sort of think, well, how did that even work? Why, surely it would have moved before then, or,
And what does it feed on?
Yeah.
What does it actually feed on? Because it can't feed on spaceships. I mean, maybe it does. But then spaceships inherently avoid asteroid fields, as we're told in this film. So it seems unlikely. So I don't know what it feeds on. I don't really care, though, because it's a very cool monster and a really cool scene. It takes them far too long to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Far
too long.
Only he figures. He's the only one that figures out.
Yeah.
First, and he doesn't tell them. He just goes, "Get in the ship, we're going." And they're like, "Oh, it's collapsing. Oh, it's not collapsing. It's a gob.
It's a massive gob." And I believe the special edition adds the thing coming out to grab them afterwards, doesn't it? Yeah. Which is quite cool as well. We also get the first appearance of the Emperor.
Yeah, which again,
in this film.
Originally. Voiced by someone else, and it was it was a woman with stuff on her face.
Heavy prosthetics. It looks really goofy. I rewatched it this morning, and it looks awful.
Yeah, I remember it because it's got really massive eyepieces, hasn't it?
It's got like 2 huge eye prosthetics, and it just looks really weird and silly. And it doesn't sound anything like Ian McDermott.
No.
So it sounds really weird and looks really weird. So again, you're right. I mean, Empire might be the one where the special edition is actually the better option.
Yeah, I think so. Because I mean, I think by then I think Ian McDermott is so established as the Emperor.
Oh yeah.
They probably had no sort of choice but to go back and at least redo
the voice. And if you're going to get him in to do the voice, you might as well just get him in on the green screen, because it's a hologram as well. It's not like he even needed to be, you know, in front of anything but a green screen. I mean, back in '97, green, blue screen. Yeah, and it does definitely serve continuity better having him there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so meanwhile, Luke is obviously on Dagobah.
Yeah, which is it's one of those. It's such a great set.
The sets in this are amazing, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're just so amazing, and that place looks horrible. The swamp of Dagobah
it's disgusting.
The most horrible place, you know.
I know that obviously they had to build the set like 4 feet above the ground as well.
Yeah.
Because of, the puppeteers for Yoda.
Yeah. And I don't know whether Yoda's species are like native to that kind of environment anyway. I guess maybe
I don't even
maybe
think
we'll find
books have ever really.
It was apparently an unwritten or maybe even written rule from Lucas that they don't talk about Yoda's species or go into much history about them. Obviously, they are now. Because
with Baby
Disney.
Yoda.
Well, yeah, and I'm assuming they're going to probably tell everything. Unfortunately, I quite like it just to be a mystery, but I never knew. I mean, maybe his species come from this kind of climate, but it is just like, so you needed to hide, and I mean Obi-Wan did that, but he went somewhere reasonable.
Well, yeah.
You just gone to bloody the swamp of Dagobah. And I understand, because Yoda's like the last of his species, right? So he's going to be obviously Yoda if anyone sees him. But he could have gone somewhere that was remote and not awful.
But again, they ever said that he's the last? Because they don't ever say that he's the last, do they?
Doesn't he say?
I don't think so. Not.
I thought he said he was the last of his. Maybe you're right. No, maybe you're right. Maybe I just imagined that.
I think just the fact that they've never used. I mean, you've got Yartle is it Yartle or something like that from the prequels? But
yes,
I think that's the only other one you see. But
maybe you're right.
They for all we know, that might be, they could come from a. But you'd have thought if they're all very small and stuff, you'd have thought they'd have been eaten by all the.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's there, but I know, either that or maybe. I mean, you'd presume that maybe because of the way they are, that all of his race are force sensitive. But
I always assumed that his race was.
Yeah, it's all speculation, but
yeah, of course.
That's always the impression that I kind of got.
But yeah, Dagobah is an absolute shithole.
Yeah.
And it's horrible.
I suppose, at least there's plenty to eat there.
Yeah.
And he seems to be surviving quite well. He's got a nice little hovel.
Yeah, it's quite a nice little hobbit home.
And obviously, I've always loved Yoda. I think Yoda he just looks so great, and I think that they were really worried about Yoda because I think a lot hinged on whether they could do a realistic enough puppet that you weren't looking at, as they put it, Kermit.
Absolutely, and they really do pull it off. And oddly enough, the DVD, because I was watching The Empire Strikes Back before I started this, and the DVD has actually restarted and is now at Dagobah, so that's quite convenient. Yoda's on screen in the background right now. Yeah, and I think they did a tremendous job with this puppet. It looks great. I think the set design of Dagobah obviously helps a lot because they can hide, put him put people underneath and kind of hide.
I think it took 3 people to work.
Did it? That's interesting.
I think roughly 3 people, because you got like the eyes and the ears and stuff. And
yeah, he is very expressive.
Yeah, he is. He's really. I mean, it's an amazing puppet, and obviously, originally Lucas offered the part to Henson, and Henson turned it down, but said, "Why don't you ask Frank Oz to do it?" And so he asked Frank Oz, and apparently on the call sheet for those scenes, he was the only human there. So
really,
not Luke, Mark Hamill was like the only, on screen. So, he's there with like, apparently there was like snakes and lizards and all sorts of other stuff there.
Mm.
And he, I think he got a bit depressed and sort of.
I'm not surprised.
And apparently, Frank Oz would bring out Miss Piggy to cheer him up. Which I thought was fantastic.
he does have a history with Miss Piggy, so But yeah,
that set was left like, they were on there for weeks, and apparently the water was absolutely full of all sorts of gribblies and
yeah, of course.
Proper.
I mean, which adds to the effect, but it's not great when you're the actor who has to sit in it.
Oh no, yeah, you really wouldn't want to get in that.
I always heard horror stories of the milk that they gave the androids in the Alien franchise.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just I mean, Lance Hendrickson was saying, like, they'd leave it to the side.
Yeah.
But like they had to keep doing scenes over and over, and then it would spoil, and then he's drinking spoiled milk, and
it would go real quick.
Good Lord.
I mean,
I think some actors do suffer.
I always think about that one is with the is it Dawn of the Dead? With the guy, the poor guy that gets ripped apart, and he was apparently there in the guts.
Yes.
For hours, and I think it actually made him ill.
I'm sure it did, but it's an incredible shot.
Yeah.
My favorite part of that is that his voice gets higher as they rip his vocal cords.
Yeah.
Tremendous stuff. But yeah, so what were you fooled into thinking that Yoda was just another animal on Luke's way to find the real Yoda to begin with? Or did you immediately think this is Yoda?
I don't know.
It's hard to go back to that, isn't it? I was trying to think myself.
It's so long ago now, and I was so young at the time that I would presume that
fell for it.
I would presume I would have fallen for it. That I would just think, oh, he's just a funny little sort of orco-like creature, he's that sort of, he's the comic relief. So I would guess I originally fell for it, but I don't actually remember. I think the thing is that Empire's the one is probably the movie that I've probably seen the most out of almost all movies.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's probably up there for me, actually.
It's a long way from my,
from your first
reaction,
viewing.
So
yeah.
But I reckon I probably would have been fooled.
Do you think that because obviously Yoda's been on that planet for what, like 30 years or something?
Yeah.
Maybe longer.
Well, Luke's 23.
Okay, so at least 22 years then. 23 years. Do you think that he's like, he was just really lonely? Because he properly hams this up. Like,
oh yeah,
like it's not like he just acts like a weird character. You can tell Yoda's loving this. He's having a lot of fun.
I guess it's probably the first sentient contact
he's
had in years. But I mean, we don't know that he hasn't had other contact. I guess.
I assume that he's probably communed with Obi-Wan over the time.
Yeah. I guess with forced communication, I suppose.
But I don't know, obviously.
No.
I don't know if that's the case or not. I think I always assumed that they did, but I guess maybe we'll find out with the new Obi-Wan series. They might plug that hole.
That's true.
I'm
still not quite sure how I feel about that, but
No.
We'll see.
I think we'll see. Yeah, I think it depends. It all depends on the writing and the direction, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so Luke obviously realizes that Yoda is Yoda. and
after
begins his training.
After he's like completely frustrated with him, and he's like, "Oh God, this kid's like got the patience of a gnat. There's no way he's gonna.
It's like,
there's no way he's gonna have the patience to do this."
Yeah. But I always thought, like, well, his friends are endangered. You can understand his frustration. It's not like he's just doing it. It's not like he's just annoyed with this little green twat. It's like, my friends actually need my help.
Yeah, I've got to get on with this. They've got to, I've got to hurry up. The impetuance of youth.
So Luke starts his training, and I always really loved that that the symbolism of the scene where he's fighting himself in the Vader suit. Love that.
For the longest time confused the crap out of me when I was a
kid.
Did
it? Nice.
Because I really didn't get the whole, this is like a metaphor for this is how you could end up. It was like, but it's Vader, but it's him. It's like, no, because I think I think the first sort of couple of times you watch it, because it's, the way things are, you're sort of like, well, is it him? Because you're not even sure it's him at first, I don't think. and then it's like, no, it is him.
That's the thing. I suppose in the cinema you probably wouldn't. Obviously, once you had it on VHS and stuff, you rewind it back and you're like, oh no, it is definitely him. And obviously now in high def, you're like, okay, yeah, sure. But yeah, I always loved that scene. I always thought that was quite a haunting, awesome scene. And there was a moment I distinctly remember thinking that Vader was actually there to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just being like, oh my God, like Vader's on this planet.
Yeah, because I mean, when you're a kid, you don't really get sort of weird trials and stuff. No, now they're like 10 a penny. You think, oh, it's all in his head. It's fine. But when you're a kid, you're like, oh my God, how the hell did he get there?
This is a short film. Cut straight to the climax. Okay.
Already. Like, who's going to be the bad guy now?
Yeah. But yeah, I absolutely love the training scene. And I love obviously the moment the X-wing is raised out of the swamp is a wonderful scene. Also makes me.
I always think his bloody teaching is really impetuous as well. It's like,
yeah, it is.
He doesn't actually
help.
He has a go at Luke for not trusting that he can do it, but then he hasn't shown him that he could do it.
No, and then he does it himself.
So it's not.
It's like
not a case of, oh, you just do what you're told. It's like, no, show me how to do things. It's like, that's how teaching works.
Yeah, it's like when your parents are trying to show you how to do something and you do it wrong a couple of times. It's like, oh, I'll do it. It's like, well, then I'm never going to learn, am I? Because you're doing it for me now. Although it seems unlikely that situation will happen again. So, but yeah, I absolutely love the training scenes. I think they're great.
My X-wing, the X-wing that I had the blast damage.
Oh, nice.
Enough damage from all that.
I actually I had have a model X-wing here, which I think you've seen before. But I actually dirtied that up during the lockdown. I was like, I'm going to dirty this up so it looks all knackered and like an X-wing should, because X-wing shouldn't be clean at all.
No, because you always get the impression that they're like mostly cobbled together and kept together by tape and things. Because
I must admit, it's one thing I think they missed with the prequels that I would have really liked to have seen would have been like brand new X-wings, like had the same design but just brand new, like they're
I think that
pristine.
The sort of Jedi fighters are kind of going that way, aren't they?
They go that way, but I just think it would have been really nice, especially at the point of like Revenge of the Sith, if we could have actually seen full X-wings, but just like they're pristine, like they've just come off the production line, as a contrast to the knackered ones we see from New Hope onwards.
But I think the contrast with the ships in those are already evident anyway. I think
it is,
especially. Excuse me, with the sort of the really big silver hot rod type ones.
Yes,
they're they're massively sleek and shiny and brand new looking. So I think actually that's one of the things that's always been so good about Star Wars is that it's always felt like a lived-in place.
Absolutely, it's
always felt that it's not just a sort of shiny space place like you see a lot of those things at that time.
Aside from
proper lived-in thing.
yeah, aside from when you're on these Imperial
which is very
ships
you know,
or bases. Yeah, it is, and also it fits their character that it is spotless. You imagine that someone has to clean this with a toothbrush every day, every
I always
every
presumed
corner.
those little boxes with the wheels,
Yeah.
those things. I always
You
presumed
think they're
they were
Roombas?
cleaners.
Yeah, maybe they are.
I'm not actually sure what they're supposed to be. I'm sure that there's an explanation for what they really are, but I've always presumed they were like cleaning droids and stuff.
Maybe they are. They're just Roombas.
Yeah, they're just
Death Star Roomba. Well, that would make sense because you know what the other things are for. You've got obviously the probe droid and you've got the interrogation droid, haven't you? So yeah, maybe it is. Maybe that's what it does.
That's actually one thing that I remember being when I was a kid. When you first see the Imperial
the probe droid.
No, the one in the Empire at the beginning.
The probe droid. Is he a probe droid? One that lands on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that I remember being vaguely terrified by that. I think it was all the arms.
Yeah, it's a very weird shape, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it moves very strange as well, whether intentionally or unintentionally. The way it kind of shifts around is very weird as well.
Yeah, I do remember being a bit like, "Oh God, that's horrible." And it's like this. It's not even that it's a monstrous or anything like that. It's just weird.
Yeah, it's just weird, and you don't know
what all those arms do.
Well, and it doesn't have a direction. Like you can't tell. Like it's not looking. Like if R2D2 turns the wrong way, you're like, well, he's not looking at me. Yeah, like with the probe droid, you can't see that because it's kind of got eyes or like cameras all the way around its head, and then it's got these tentacle things. And yeah, you're right. It's just like you just don't know what it is, do you? It's just completely alien. It's like a floating jellyfish thing.
Yeah. Very odd-looking thing.
It's a great design, though, the Imperial probe droid. In fact, all of the droids.
That's it. I think that's it. I mean, a lot of the stuff was designed by Macquarie, wasn't it? So
absolutely,
you got a lot of the ships and stuff were, all Macquarie designs, and some of the early designs for some of them are just so amazing, and you see the sort of where they come across. And I love one of the very early designs for Vader, where he's got he's got more of like a sort of curved beak to his sort of front.
Yeah, I like that design.
I really like that design. So it's because it's got a really sort of arch head as well. It almost looks more frightening, if anything.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it certainly does. But yeah, so where were we? Han and
Han and
Leia have escaped the monster.
Well, first of all, you've got the how they escape, which I always loved. With they go straight for they go straight for the Star Destroyer, and they hide.
Oh, sorry, escaping them. Yes, yes, and then float away with the rest of the garbage. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when you see the Slave One sort of following them.
Yeah.
And
and we get to meet all the other bounty hunters.
I always loved that scene as a kid.
I did as well. When they any scene which I think Star Wars does so well when they're just expanding the universe.
Yeah.
They're just like, we're not going to explain who any of these people are.
Nope.
But like
they've all got explanations.
Oh, of course they do now.
Yeah,
but the thing about
Dengar and
Bosk. Bosk was always my favorite. I always loved Bosk.
I love Bosk.
Bosk is probably my favorite bounty hunter.
I always thought Dengar was a weird one because it just looks like a bloke with loads of bandages on. It's like, what's going on there? It's like, what? Yeah. Why is he stood there with all these bandages on him?
Well, I assume maybe he's just recently been injured whilst doing something. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I always love those scenes where they just introduce these characters because as well, obviously Lucas wanting to make as much money as possible made toys of all of it. So even the most obscure thing in a movie will have a toy, and that kind of lends itself to being like more credible, if that makes sense. It's not just like a throwaway character. It's like, wow, there's
another way that Lucas made most of his money was all on the merchandising, because at that point, there was no. The first one, there was no real such thing as film merchandising as such.
No, I think there was like Planet of the Apes.
But no one was really interested in. The company certainly wasn't interested. No, which is why they gave them the rights.
And they certainly popularized the what we now have in terms of merchandising.
Absolutely.
But I think I think as well, just having those as actual toys, like having a Bosk toy, made Bosk a real part of the universe because they named everyone when they gave them the toy as well.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that's it. When you got those, the figures, you got the cards. It's like, oh, that's what he's called. It's like that's what his name is. And
I remember I used to get a collectible card game, the Star Wars collectible card game. It was like a Magic the Gathering kind of card game, but with Star Wars back in the 90s. And I used to love getting those, and just not even to play the game, but just to like read all the cards and like know what everything was, and you know all of the little gadgets, because that got into all the like the thermal detonators and the all of these different things. Like, oh, this is amazing.
And they usually had some little tidbit of sort of he got this by doing this, or they did this when this happened, and like, oh cool, like just a little little snippet of something to give you something extra. Yeah, I used to love all that stuff. I must admit.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, I love that.
The suit that I think it's Bosk wears was a leftover from Doctor Who.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was a spacesuit from one of the Doctor Who episodes. I want to say Green Death, but I'm not sure.
Oh, not the Bosk.
Not the actual
suit that he wears.
Suit that he wears. Yeah.
Interesting. That'd be great if it was like. Yeah, well, that's really cool. I'm gonna have to try and find out what that is now and track it down.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Green. I'm pretty sure it's Green Death, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, interesting. But yeah, I absolutely adore that scene. And then yes, like you said, the Millennium Falcon, they attach to to a Star Destroyer to disappear. And they get mention of a cloaking device, and I was like, oh, I never thought that a cloaking device would exist in Star Wars, but there it is. Yeah. And then
the fact that he says it's too small to have a cloaking device.
Yeah, no ship that small has a cloaking device.
Bloody hell! How big does a ship have to be to have a cloaking device? Then it's like, you mean you can cloak a Star Destroyer? Fucking hell!
Yeah, and if so, why didn't you just cloak the Death Star or something? Although I suppose that would be a massive flight hazard if you had something invisible that big. But yeah, maybe like Corvette size is the ideal size. But yeah, I love that scene as well where he thinks they've just disappeared. He's like, what the hell happened? But obviously Boba Fett. Yeah, he does.
Losing them. Poor old Captain Needer. I'm going to go and apologise to him, ready my shuttle. He goes there in person and gets murdered, poor bastard.
But you can see from the look in his eyes and the look at the eyes of the person who he tells, like, they know he's dead.
Yeah, you're not
like he's like, I'm dead. Like he's basically like, guys, I'm going to take the fall for this one.
Yeah.
But I'm dead.
For that.
Please give this letter to my wife.
So one of the which is what Krishna does so well is before this, you get all the scenes when they're on the Falcon, and you get the scenes between Han and Leia, establishing their relationship a bit more, and showing how they're reacting to each other, and how they're getting along, and it's beautifully done. It goes along so nicely. It's like you never feel bored or you want to be with these people. You want to sort of like you want them to have a relationship. You
want them to have a relationship, and it in no way feels forced. It feels very natural throughout this episode of the trilogy.
Yeah, and also I think it's also another proof that because at this point there's still a thing between Leia and Luke, so you can tell that they never actually properly established them as brother and sister yet.
No, I think that came Jedi. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you got the scene at the start where she kisses Luke, and Luke kind of sits back all cocky and like
yeah.
And then, which makes it really weird because later on he's like, I think I've always known. It's like,
yeah, you
that's not good.
Oh, if you've always known, then you probably should have reacted a bit different then.
Yeah. Should have just sat there in stunned silence, just like, oh god, what have I done?
And then of course you get where they're going to go, and they go to
the Lando system.
The Lando system, yeah. and you're introduced to Lando Calrissian, played by Billy D. Williams, who is fucking cool.
He is like, top 2 or 3 characters of Star Wars. Lando. Yeah. I love Lando.
He's not even in it very much, which is, I think,
he's just the coolest guy. And ever.
I guess in early drafts, he was going to be a survivor of the Clone Wars. He was going to be a clone.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and then they completely got rid of that plotline completely. But
yeah,
I mean,
he's tremendous.
And when you get to the betrayal,
I
mean, obviously he redeems himself later, but when I remember.
But what an asshole.
That door opens and Vader stood there.
There's no warning for it either.
No.
Because the way that Billy D and Orlando play that off, because he's literally just saying, I don't think it's going to be a problem much longer. I've just made a deal that's going to secure and ensure that the Empire aren't around anymore. Literally saying that just as that door opens, and then it's like, whoa, what? We were just having a friendly conversation, and now,
bastard, you complete bastard.
You really do feel the betrayal, don't you?
Yeah,
you really do.
And I think something that I'd only recently thought about is, when they first turn up and the twin fighters fire on them.
Yes.
They're warning them off. Now you think, maybe they were actually trying to warn them off properly.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd never thought about that. Yeah, maybe.
Because you'd have thought, why are they opening fire on them? Why are they sort of, are they that paranoid that they fire on them? But I think about it, maybe I'm putting too much into it.
They were trying to dissuade them.
Yeah, maybe they were genuinely sort of going, no, piss off,
Yeah, get out of here.
We can't say anything, we're being monitored, but piss off,
Interesting. I'd never thought about that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Vader's made a lovely meal for Han and Leia, and then Han just instantly starts shooting at him, ruining everyone's day. I love Han's reaction. The immediate reaction to shooting is fantastic.
Yeah, and I love the Vader deflection sort of, not even with a lightsaber. The fact he just goes dunk dunk with his hand is like, oh shit, Vader can do that. Bloody hell.
Yeah, it just kind of showed how truly powerful Vader is. It's like a normal person is not going to best Vader.
No.
That's effectively what I always took from that scene was it will take a Jedi.
Yeah.
It will take Luke to defeat Vader. You're not going to get Han Solo or, Chewbacca taking out Vader.
No, God no.
But yeah, absolutely love that scene. You're right. When he blocks it and everything, it's the coolest thing ever.
And then, of course, you get the Boba Fett, steps in. And again, Boba Fett is one of those really weird characters who is basically a suit. There's nothing about Boba Fett but the fact that he just looks fucking cool.
Yep. And as I've always argued before, he's actually really shit.
Yeah.
At his job, and he's kind of useless and bumbling, and
especially when it comes to by the time you get to Jedi and he's getting knocked about and stuff.
Yeah.
it's quite sort of shocking, really. How
it's
everybody
weird.
Loves Boba Fett. I mean, it is the coolest looking fucking guy.
Oh, it looks amazing. And obviously now, I'm guessing they're bringing him into into the Mandalorian.
Well, he's in the first season.
Yes, well, we didn't know it was him at the time.
No,
it's someone, but now they've obviously confirmed that it is. Which is cool.
You think, well, it kind of looks like Boba Fett's feet, but I'm not sure. It's like, no, it's definitely Boba Fett. So,
it could have been anyone at that point, but I'm glad it is, and hopefully now they'll make him more of a badass, because that's what Legends did. The fans made Boba Fett into something way better than he was in the movies, because in the movies it doesn't really achieve an awful lot, to be honest. But yeah, the coolest outfit for sure. So Han is taken and frozen in carbonite, and we get the immortal line of "I love you, I know," which was ad-libbed.
Still one of the best lines, response to it's just pure like rogue character sort of thing to say.
It's funny because Harrison Ford managed that a few times in his career. Here that was an ad-lib line, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, apparently it wasn't completely ad-libbed. It was they discussed.
Oh, they did
certain
different
things. They tried it a number of different ways, and apparently Kushner said, just go with what you feel. And
yeah, so he came up with it.
Some people say that it was actually written on a script, but others say otherwise. So again, it's one of those not quite sure.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously, of course, Harrison Ford would then go on and do something very similar with Indiana Jones with the gun.
Yeah.
With the guy with the shooting the guy instead of fighting him. So I think Harrison Ford's ad lib seem to do very well. He seems to do well when he's given the chance to just go with his heart.
I think it always sort of vaguely feels like it's like with Ford it always vaguely feels like I just want to get on with it. Can we just get on with it? It's like it always feels like an impatient guy. This Harrison Ford of it. Which
I mean, to be fair, kind of. Both the characters of Han and Indy.
Yeah.
They are both very impulsive characters, aren't they? So it does kind of work from that perspective. But yeah, Han is frozen in carbonite.
Well, they so at that point they did that because they weren't sure whether he was going to return for Jedi.
Yes.
Because Fisher and Hamill had signed on for the 3 movies, but Ford hadn't, and Ford wanted them to kill him.
Yeah. Well, he said he didn't see any point in them continuing with his character.
I've done my part. I want to sacrifice myself. Have a good death, and move on.
And the thing is, he was right. Ultimately, the only reason you've got to think at the time when Leia wasn't Luke's sister, absolutely Harrison Ford had nothing to do. Han Solo had nowhere to go because it was obviously going to be Leia getting with Luke.
Yeah.
And Han's just, what does Han do? He's got no character arc after Empire.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that he dies off and then Luke gets with Leia. Obviously, hindsight now, they changed the story to actually, and I wonder how much of that was to placate Harrison Ford and be like, okay, well, you get with Leia then, and that gives you a character arc whilst keeping Luke, having his character arc with his father. Yeah. Maybe that's why they changed it. I don't know. No. But certainly, I can see why he would think that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't feel like his character's going anywhere. Obviously, now we know that they changed the story and it becomes, Leia becomes Luke's sister. But
I mean,
until then,
Jedi would have been a lot weirder without him, though, wouldn't it?
It would have been pretty.
Imagine
pretty dark.
What they'd have had to have done. What they would have done.
No.
But
I guess they would have kept him alive and just been like, well, he's frozen in carbonite, but
yeah, they're just not be able to get to him.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
It's transit or something. I don't know. It's like a Hicks Newt death. Oh, he died in transit. Yeah. It's like, oh god, that would have been awful.
That would have been awful. So it all worked out for the best.
Yeah.
But in any case, they are testing the carbonite to see if a human will survive, so that they can do it to Luke, who is still on Dagobah, and goes against the wishes of Yoda.
Well, he gets the Force vision, doesn't he, of a future event. And Yoda, I do love the fact that Yoda says, when he says,
"Let him die."
I have. Luke says, "I have to, get them. I have to save them." It's like, would you, they're gonna die, and it's like, well, if you believe in what they fight for, then let them. It's like, Jesus, that's harsh. Christ.
Starting to sound like a Sith, bro.
Yeah.
That you spent too long on this planet. Yeah, it was a harsh moment, wasn't it? It was a real harsh moment.
And that's also when you get the when he flies off and Ben says, that boy's our last hope, and he says, no, there is another.
Mm. And then
at that point, it's not established who the other is, so
No, absolutely. It could be anyone. It's weird and makes no sense now that the prequels have happened, because of course Obi-Wan knows there's another.
Yeah.
Because Obi-Wan literally delivered the twins to bloody Tatooine. But that aside, that stupidity aside, a wonderful line, and kept, obviously you then had to wait years to find out.
Yeah.
Who this other was. And the other thing I really like about that scene is by them saying that Luke could die at the end of Empire.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of sets it to where it's like, whoa, like, because it looks really desperate towards the end of this movie, which we're quickly getting to.
Yeah.
And it adds to the stakes when they're like, well, he could die because there's another one.
Yeah.
Like, it could be not about Luke anymore.
I mean, wow. And also it thoroughly puts it in your mind as well.
It does.
It tells you, actually, he could die here.
And
you're like, bloody hell, really? You're like, it adds to the tension of what could happen, because he's not fully trained. He's going up against a fully trained ex Jedi, and he's
who we've just seen deflect all of those laser blasts, and we know is a complete.
I mean, I think that one thing I was always sort of, for me, it's always been one of those weird things, is they never really establish how much time has passed
between New Hope and Empire.
No, I mean, like, when between Hoth and Luke leaving, it's like, how much training has he had? Is it like a day? Has he been there for a week? Has he been there?
They don't.
You don't know how long they were in the asteroid field for.
Or Cloud City. I always assumed they were on Cloud City for quite a while. Even so, I can't. It doesn't feel like it's longer than a couple of weeks, does it?
Yeah.
At the most.
At most, it's probably about 2 weeks. You'd have thought.
Which is, considering Jedi are meant to train their whole lives.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean,
but again, he's Anakin's son.
Jedi start when they're like 5.
Yes.
So,
but again, he is Anakin's son, so it does work from that perspective that he is ludicrously powerful.
Mm-hmm.
He's inherited ludicrously powerful Force abilities from his father.
Yeah.
So Luke heads off then to Bespin, to Cloud City, to confront Vader and save his friends. And I just realized we forgot to mention the wonderful C-3PO getting blasted when he discovers the stormtroopers and gets put together the wrong way around, and then carried around by Chewbacca. I love it.
There's the scene when they're in the Falcon but earlier, and he's just being the most annoying twat, and I love the scene where Leia turns him off.
Just turns him off. Yeah.
That is just. It's like, oh, thank God for that. It's like so. It's like such a relief. It's like, God, I wish they did that more.
There's the scene,
and then when they blow him up, you're like, oh shit! Actually,
I didn't mean it.
I don't want him dead. It's like, just switch him off more. It's fine. Don't kill him.
I always thought the biggest. He was the biggest dick when he interrupts them when they're about to kiss.
Oh, the cock block.
I was like, you suck so bad. But you're right. When he gets blown up, you're like, oh no, but I don't want him to die.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so well done, though. It's brilliant.
But I absolutely love. I think my favorite version of C-3PO is when he's strapped to Chewie's back. It's hilarious.
Like hitting his head on things. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Tremendous.
Look what happened to me. It's like, even with like no arms and legs attached, he's still bloody annoying.
yeah, absolutely. So yes, Luke finally arrives and confronts Vader.
And you get that great bit as well with where you've with Lando, you've been getting this sort of like, I made this deal, I get to keep it. At first he says, you get to keep the Leia and Chewie, but they can never leave the station again. And then later on, it's like, put them in my ship. It's like, hang on, that's not what we said. It's like, he just keeps changing this deal, and it's like, oh fuck, this is really. And then when obviously he sort of like, he
rebels.
Rescues them. I love this the scene where Chewie's got him by the throat.
Oh yeah,
and it's like literally like Leia's there going like completely like controlling Chewie and stuff, and there's like that. Of course we understand. We heard that. Yeah, we know what you. It's like
yeah.
that. I love the sarcasm in her delivery. It's brilliant.
It is amazing. It's such a great scene. There are so many great scenes in this film.
Yeah.
So many massively iconic scenes.
And I think that again, I think it all benefited from the fact that I think it was Krishna was the director. I don't think we would have got any of this character development from Lucas himself.
No,
because people say that Lucas, he's great at ideas, but he's not very human.
No, and I think that shows in the prequel films. To be honest,
absolutely.
His attempts at relationships in the prequels are terrible.
Apparently, even his wife said he was cold. So it's like,
oh wow, okay.
It's like, that's not good, is it?
No, not really. So I think this then leads to what is, in my opinion, probably my favorite confrontation of the certainly. Well, actually, of all the films, I think this fight between Luke and Vader, which just continues to go on and on, with Luke getting everything thrown at him with force powers and the lightsaber battles.
So good though. I love that. He's just stood there like it's almost just kind of toying with him, just like throwing crap at him. It's really great.
Well, this was the thing. This was what this fan theory that I read was basically speculating on, was that like Vader could have killed him at any time.
Absolutely, I think you can see that because when they're fighting, Vader's stance is mostly one-handed, and he's he disarms him at one point. He takes the I mean, not before he actually disarms him. He actually he knocks the sword away from him. Before then, and you can tell that he's he could have, if he, like you said, if he wanted to, he could have definitely killed him by now if it wasn't for the fact that he wanted him.
Yeah, and after tremendous action set piece after action set piece, because it is a long couple of scenes. This fight, we finally find out why he wasn't going to kill him, and that's when he reveals that he is his father. Spoilers. And that he wants, basically he wants him to rule the empire as father and son.
Yeah. I mean, which would mean killing the emperor.
Which I think was always his plan anyway, wasn't it? It's the
so.
Sith rule of two, isn't it? Or at least it used to be.
Well, I mean, you don't really get that until later, but yeah. I've always had a problem with the Sith rule of two.
It doesn't make any sense, does it?
No.
But
it certainly doesn't make any sense with the Old Republic games anyway.
No, I always just assumed that obviously being Sith, you're inherently untrustworthy. So you'd think if anything, mostly the Sith would just work on their own.
Yeah.
Just to to stop the inevitable betrayal from happening. But yeah, so a shocking scene.
I mean, again, it's that's stuff that you can't keep secret anymore.
Oh no,
you couldn't do that now.
That was a huge moment when I saw that the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and of course, I don't think you really buy it at first. I certainly didn't.
Well, and that's a great thing because I think Luke effectively becomes the audience. His reaction is the audience's reaction. When he's like, "No, that's not true. That's impossible." Like it's like he is the audience at that point. The audience are like, "What? Like no."
Yeah,
that's not right.
Yeah, that can't be true at all. He's got to be lying.
And
of course, on the set, the Prowse obviously who is Vader's body, as it were. He did the dialogue.
I killed your father, wasn't it? On the set,
and it was no Obi-Wan killed your father.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, so it's Obi-Wan, and of course, one of the reasons for that was because apparently Price was a notorious blabbermouth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was a down the pub talking guy.
Oh.
So they basically said, look, there's no way we can keep it secret if Price knows.
Yeah.
You know, and even Hamill didn't know until the day. I don't think. I think they the director took him aside and said, look,
I need to give you some motivation.
It's like this is what they're saying. He said, but
Yeah.
what he's actually saying is what he will be saying is this. And he said to him, you need to react to that, not to what he's actually saying to you.
It's an amazing scene. I mean, it's just. I don't even know how to explain it.
It's one of the most iconic scenes in film history. It's as big as that. It's as simple and as big as that. It's just one of the biggest, most iconic scenes in movie history.
Which is why I've always argued that people should never show their kids these films in order of the prequels, then the sequels, because it ruins that moment.
It should be the release date. I've always said release date. I mean, I kind of like the what do they call it? What's is it watch the first two and then you watch New Hope and Empire, then you watch 3, then you watch Jedi.
Okay.
I can't remember what they call it. They call it the. It's gonna bug me. They call it some sort of there's an order they call it, and I can't remember what it is. But I think it's that way round. I think.
Right.
That's what some people say you should.
But it's an interesting thought for sure.
I just think just watch them in order of release. I think that's the best way to do it.
I completely agree. Because this is a wonderful moment that I wouldn't want a kid to not have.
Yeah.
Like, if I had a kid, I would want him to or her to see this scene and just be like, what? Like I was mind blown.
Completely.
An amazing scene. So of course
it's a bloody downer of an ending, really, because
it is.
He's been mutilated.
Yeah, so Luke loses his hand.
Yeah.
He's found out his father
is the biggest
Darth
badass
Vader.
in the galaxy.
Yeah.
Han's like frozen and going to Java.
Yeah.
And it's it's a great ending. It's such a brilliant way. It's like the thing about the first Star Wars is that when it came out, almost all of the movies that were around at the time were all very dour.
Yes.
It was the end of the 70s, and everything was very gritty and very sort of miserable. And Star Wars proved that there was an audience for happy, great spectacle. And this one, although it's still it's not more of the same. They do something. They move the story on. They
really do, yeah.
And it's quite a. I think it's probably one of the reasons why I love this episode so much is that it's got a bloody miserable ending.
It really does. It's a very miserable ending, but I do love it. I absolutely love it. It's one of the most memorable endings to a movie I can think of.
Yeah.
Honestly. So Luke obviously takes a leap of faith and jumps. Well, I don't even know if it's a leap of faith or whether it's just like, I would rather die than join you, and that's that.
No, I think that's it. I think he literally thinks, nope, that's it, I'm going.
So he drops down the air shaft and ends up hanging on an antenna beneath the city, which I always thought was terrifying because that antenna never looked like it would really hold for long.
No.
I always saw that antenna as like moments away from breaking off.
Absolutely. And I think also when you're a kid, you think, he jumps and you think, oh God, that's it. That's him gone.
Yeah, because we've already been told
that.
And we've already been told there's another.
See, that's a bloody big drop.
And we've already been told there's another as well.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible that he just dies and that's it. But he doesn't. And Leia, Lando, and Chewie on the Falcon.
They're escaping, and he uses the Force to talk to Leia.
And Lando's like, we're not going back. And then Chewie just shouts at him, and he's like, okay, we're going back, fine. I know better than to argue.
I tell you what's really weird is actually I was watching some sort of clips and stuff from the makings of stuff, and it's really weird on set. Chewie says lines.
Yeah, he speaks. Yeah. Mayhew just spoke lines and stuff. Yeah.
It's really weird when you hear Chewie sort of speaking like lines. You think, oh, that's really odd.
Well,
but
I
it's
guess it
also
makes
kind
sense
of cool
because
you hear what like he's saying.
Well, and also I think he needed to for Harrison Ford and people who understood what he was meant to be saying.
Yeah.
I guess it made more sense for him to actually say the lines so that Harrison Ford could reply as if he's heard what he's actually heard.
Conversation, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that beneath that mask, he is just moving his mouth to make, actual normal speech.
Yeah. Very odd.
But yeah, and that's pretty much that. They escape. They escape the TIE fighters that chase them. Vader briefly communicates.
Get one of my favorite scenes, actually. One of my favorite. It's the so they're off. They're flying, and Vader says to Fiat, "Did you disable the hyperdrive?"
Yeah.
Fiat says, "Yes, we disabled it." And then of course, R2 has spoken to the central computer, and the computer told them that it's been disabled. So they obviously they turn it back on and they get away. And there's that brilliant scene where
he just knows
the
camera
he's dead. Cuts to Fiat, and you think, and you can see his face, and it's like, oh fuck, I'm dead.
Yep.
And Vader just like turns to him, turns back to the screen, and then just walks away. And the camera turns back to Fiat, and as he's like, I'm not dead, I'm not dead, I'm not dead, I'm not dead. He's just going away. Fucking hell, I'm still alive. It's like, I love that.
He's like, Vader's like,
his eyes is brilliant.
Yeah, Vader's like, look, the Emperor's told me I can only kill so many a week, and I've killed a lot this week. So
I reached my quota this week. You're lucky.
Yeah. If you fuck up tomorrow, though, you're done. You're done for. So Luke gets his robot hand.
Yeah.
And they rejoin the Rebel fleet, and that's pretty much where we end with Lando and Chewie out on their quest to save Han.
Yeah, Lando and Chewie leaving in the Falcon to go and get Han back, and
yeah. An amazing film.
Yeah. And so after they sort of all the filmed it, so Lucas wanted to remain independent from the company, from the the big studio stuff, and although Fox was going to distribute it, he wanted to fund it himself, so he funded it himself. He put his own money in, and he got a bank loan from them, but they at one point they tried to pull the loan back, and
really, I didn't know that.
It was a lot of struggles to get to get the money and stuff, and then one of the other horrible things that happened was that he wanted the credits at the end.
Yes.
And in the first movie, the studio let him get away with it because they didn't think it would go anywhere. They're like, yeah, do what you want. It's not, no one's going to watch it anyway, so do what you want. Yeah. So by the time they came to the second one, he wanted to do it again. They said no. They said absolutely not. We'll pull it. And they did all they did horrible things. They put all these fines on him, and like stupid money fines. And then when they could, they even tried to fine the director, and Lucas paid the fines for Kushner himself. And that was when he basically went, that's it. I'm not doing this ever again. Initially, Indiana Jones was going to be Fox, but because of what Fox did to him, he took it to Paramount.
That's incredible. The amount of money that Fox potentially lost out on there by just not playing ball.
Because they were, a bunch of bastards, and they wanted to fuck him over. It's like, you think, he's already had the biggest movie possible, and you still want to fuck him over. What the hell is wrong with you people?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But as I said, from that, we still got one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to show that Lucas definitely earned his money, his billions.
Yeah.
But yeah, an amazing film. Hard to even pick a favorite moment. I would have to probably say it would be the attack. But the whole film is just iconic.
It has to be either that or the fight or the duel, because
yes.
it's all done so well that it is hard to sort of specifically point something out. But I think because it's such a great movie, it's so well directed. It completely builds on everything that came before. It's one of the best examples of a sequel to any movie.
Absolutely.
Because it literally, carries on but bigger. It's just such a great movie.
It really is. I would also say as well, I think it's probably my favorite score for Star Wars as well.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's one of the things that is one of the biggest things about the Star Wars in general, especially the first one. To be fair, the fact that at that point no one was doing orchestra scores anymore.
No.
It's very old-fashioned to do an orchestral score, and
timeless though.
The music does those scenes so well. Everybody's got their own little theme. Everybody has their own, music cue, and
everyone's got that, and they ramp it up with Empire as well.
Yeah. Well, Empire is where the first time you hear the Imperial March, which is quite possibly one of the most iconic tunes ever made.
But yeah, and then you've got that incredible theme when with the speeders when they're trying to find Han and Luke. You've got that incredible score where they're flying over the mountains and stuff. It's just so many iconic themes that came from this movie. Obviously John Williams.
Yeah, it's John
it's a very John Williams score, but it's tremendous. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think probably without the score, it was probably would nowhere near have been as good a movie. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. I think the score makes A New Hope as well.
Yeah,
I think both movies really do rely on that score.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly to my mind, the greatest Star Wars film. Hands down, without a doubt. Can't believe it's 40 years old, but
oh God, no! Yeah, it's, and I mean, even the bloody the special editions, they're nearly 20 years old now.
Yeah.
I mean, they came out 2004 or something like that. Did they come out?
I want to say the special editions. No, they're like 97 or something. I think the first special editions, anyway. I'm sure they've redone it since, but it was about 1997, I think.
I was still thinking it was 96,
97. No, it was definitely late 90s.
So again, there you go. Then they are,
because I think they were done. They were done before Episode 1. They came out before Episode 1. Yeah, I'm sure they did.
I couldn't remember what they did. Either way, it's still those are still 20 years old, So.
Oh yeah, they're still very old now. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. It's like, so yeah, a lot, and again, none of the subsequent films have surpassed those.
No, absolutely.
They're all, to a certain degree,
just here it is. Good. So it was 1997 in celebration of the 20th anniversary of Star Wars.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what
that makes sense then.
Which was when I saw them in the cinema, because obviously I never saw them in the cinema originally. Yeah. So the only chance I got was that.
I saw Jedi in the cinema when
as a kid.
Yeah, I think I was 8.
Mm-hmm.
83, wasn't it? So yeah, I'd have been
83, 84. Yeah.
6, 7. Yeah, I would have been about 8 when that came out. And yeah, I remember going to see that. Oh, what a film! I mean, I think the thing is that 8 is a good age for Jedi.
It's the perfect age for Jedi. It's got everything an 8-year-old would want.
When you're getting a bit older, you're like, I fucking hate Ewoks.
There's a few things in Jedi that I'm not a big fan of, actually. I like it. I love it overall, but there are a few things.
I've gone back to being softened by to the Ewoks. I've gone back to loving them again. But for the moody teenage years, it's like, ugh, fucking Ewoks.
Yeah. Well, you've always got Empire for the dark.
Exactly.
The dark entry in the series. But yeah, there we have it. The Empire Strikes Back, 40 years this year. Yeah. And that's been fun. We did fill the time up. You were like, oh, maybe if we don't have time, we can do some reviews. We're almost up to normal movie show length there. So that went pretty well. But yes, I guess we'll see what happens next time. We may go back to another review. Another review show, or we may do another movie. Who knows? I guess we'll see what comes out and what we've watched in the week.
Well, I've already seen one thing. I'm sure I can probably squeeze in a few more this week. So yeah,
okay. Well, next time we will do a regular review show then.
Yeah.
Maybe alternate between the two. Sounds good.
Seems fair.
But in any case, thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.